Councillor Perks to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Budget Chief. I'm a big believer in our duty to speak to Torontonians in plain language, and I'm going to attempt to do that today. Unfortunately, I have to use a few numbers, so apologies for that. The motion you have in front of you says to the TTC, go find $180 million and reduce how much you spent last year by that amount. We heard from Mr. Roto, we heard from Mr. Rossini that under a similar pressure last year, the Budget Committee reduced the amount of pressure on the TTC by about $40 million. So let's assume they do that. Let's assume last year's Budget Committee was every bit as effective as this year's Budget Committee. I think that's fair, and we get to $140 million the TTC has to find. Well, what does that work out to? Well, Mr. Roto told us that a fare increase of 10 cents gets us about $35 million. So we're looking at a 35-cent fare increase as one possible scenario. He also told us that if we cut one bus, that gets us $150,000. So we're looking at cutting about 900 buses. We currently run about 1,600. So we're looking at either the largest fare increase that we have had in living memory at the TTC or the largest service cut that we have had in living memory at the TTC. That's in this motion. That's what you're about to move. After we have done that, we're going to tell Toronto Community Housing that the $100 million or so that you said you need just to keep the lights on, we're not going to give you. Now, the Toronto Community Housing isn't like the TTC. They can't just, reduce some service hours or increase some fares. The only places they could go would be, I guess, to turn off the heat or to increase rents. That's what you're telling the Toronto Community Housing Corporation to do. That's the motion you're about to pass. The next thing that's in the motion that you're about to pass is, as the city manager said, a downward pressure on service levels, which when I asked him if that meant service cuts, he said yes. So service cuts, cutting actual services to Torontonians. As you heard from Mr. Mahar when he made his deputation, that if we make cuts to things like daycare or affordable housing or recreation or public transit or any of those other things, you make it harder for people who live in Toronto in poverty to get out of poverty. You're about to pass a budget direction that will make it harder for Torontonians who live in poverty to get out of poverty. It's the exact opposite of what City Council voted for repeatedly when we had the poverty reduction strategy in front of us. Additionally, if you stay to the inflation-only property tax increase, you're not even covering the costs that you put into the budget, those of you who voted for it last year and the year before. You're not even covering those costs. It is unthinkable that people elected by Torontonians really believe that we should do the largest service cuts or fare increases in TTC history, tell people who live in Toronto Community Housing that we aren't going to be able to turn on the heat all the time or your rents are going to have to go up. It's unthinkable that we will make it worse for people who live in poverty. It's unthinkable that you won't even cover the can you kicked down the road last year and the year before. Yet, nevertheless, that's the motion that you're about to pass. This is not what Torontonians want you to do. All because of a stubborn fixation on keeping our property tax rate well below what other cities pay, my mind is just boggling. If you are a Torontonian witnessing what happens here today, you are witnessing the City of Toronto saying, we are no longer going to provide the basic services that make your life tolerable, that make neighborhoods work, and that keep Toronto as one of the great cities on this continent.